Thank you so much. This is the session on legislation, and we're being taped, so make sure that you're saying the right things as we go forward. Bob over here is going to be taking notes as well on action items that we need to look at, similar to the other sessions that we've been doing. I'm Sam Tornabene. I'm a member of the board of the Coalition for Aging LGBT, and again, welcome to our session and to this whole summit. I'd like to thank our sponsors. We have Lambda Legal has been a sponsor, a platinum sponsor of the whole summit, and Omar is here representing them. We also would like to thank the Human Rights Campaign and Stonewall Democrats for their generous support of this session. And I'd like to thank all of the volunteers who have done so much to make this work, to keep us on time, and to keep everything nice and bright and well-fed for the members of the summit. We're going to do a few things here. I'm going to introduce briefly the panelists. There's a longer bio in the handbooks that you've received on each of them, so you can refer to their long and very illustrious histories there. We're going to be taking a look at federal, state, local issues, as well as take a brief look at the courts and what action is happening there. At the end of the session, we'll have time for some questions. I would appreciate if you would write down on the 305 cards your questions, and that way we can do them more expeditiously, but we'd like to get your input as well. And we do want to spend the last few minutes of the session talking about things that we need to do in the upcoming session to make things better for the aging LGBT community. As you all know, a little over a year ago, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that same-sex marriage was illegal in all 50 states, including Texas. While that ruling went a long way in advancing the rights of members of the LGBT community, it was not a comprehensive decision that established rights over all, and there's a long way to go before we reach full equality. Many issues remain to be addressed, and many legislators are still looking to roll back some of the gains that we've made over the past year or two. This year, in state legislatures across the country, 34 in fact, more than 200 different bills were introduced that would either roll back protections for the LGBT community or legalize discrimination against LGBT people. The rights of the LGBT community, including the aging LGBT community, are already a major issue in the 2016 presidential election. Now, fortunately, Texas was not in session this past year, but already in anticipation of the 2017 session, there's a lot of activity going on and wild estimates about how much legislation is going to be introduced that would be harmful to the community. What I'd like to do at this point is briefly again introduce our panel and get started into questions. First is Linda Ender. She serves as the director of AGE, the Advocacy Group for Elders, which is the advocacy arm of the Senior Source in Dallas. Next to Linda is Steve Rudner, who serves as the board chair of Equality Texas, which is the state's largest LGBT lobbying organization. Next, we have Omar Narvaez, who's the community educator for Lambda Legal's South Central Regional Office. And finally, but not least, Rob Schneider, who serves as the manager of outreach and advocacy for AARP Texas, and he's based in Austin. What I'd like to do is ask a brief question of each of the panelists to get things started, and then we'll go into a more generalized discussion. We'd like to start with Rob. Rob, can you give us a brief overview of what AARP is focused on at the federal level, as well as what you're planning for Texas? And I'm going to scoot down with the microphone so that...
Got any more? Maybe go around the front. You mind a moving target? Hi, everybody. Rob Schneider with AARP Texas. We're a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization advocating for people age 50 plus. Social mission organization. We've got 38 million members nationally, 2.3 million in Texas. So we cover, we've got very diverse membership. We also have a very diverse agenda. But a couple of things that we focus on nationally include retirement security, making sure that people have enough money to retire and have a comfortable retirement and are protected in retirement. So we're working on a national campaign called Take a Stand, which is trying to get the presidential nominees from both parties to pledge to secure Social Security for future generations, and we're working with members of Congress, including Sam Johnson, who represents this district and who's the chair of the Social Security Subcommittee, to also pledge to work on Social Security in the next Congress. We also work on issues around caregiving. Caregiving is a priority for AARP. A couple of bills, the RAISE Act, which would require the Health and Human Services Secretary nationally to plan for supporting family caregivers. We're also working on a tax credit bill which would provide some resources for people who need caregiving, modifications to the home, respite care for caregivers. So for the RAISE Act, the definition of who a caregiver is quite broad. And with LGBT communities, often the families that we put together are not non-blood relatives. They may be friends, people who are the same age. So we don't necessarily have these blood relative built-in networks like non-LGBT people have. So the RAISE Act sort of takes that into account. Unfortunately, it's not so much the case with the Credit for Caregivers Act that more focuses on more traditional families. So for LGBT people who've taken advantage of marriage equality, tax credits are there and they're built in as part of that. It's a little more difficult and a little more complicated, and I think we'll have some discussion about that as we turn to issues at the state level.
I'm just going to do the Phil Donahue in the back here. Omar, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about what Lambda Legal's up to. You're a major force in the courts, and you've been very active in that arena for a long time. Can you talk a little bit about the focus of Lambda Legal's advocacy efforts and what we can expect from court activity in the next year?
Sure, absolutely. Thank you, Sam. Hi, everybody. My name is Omar. I am the community educator with Lambda Legal. Just really quickly, Lambda Legal, we're the nation's oldest and largest legal LGBT and HIV civil rights organization in the nation. We've been making the case for equality for 42 years. And I'm their community educator, so I'm the person who goes out and does this type of work so that our lawyers can focus on what is going on in the courts. So I'm not a lawyer, so no offense to the lawyers that are out there, but I'm glad I'm not one. I love the work that our lawyers do because they're fantastic. But I love being out in the community and with the people. So some of the biggest things that we're working on in the big landscape that's coming up, and you've probably already heard a lot about it, is first and foremost is going to be these what we call religious freedom bills or religious restoration acts, which we at Lambda call a license to discriminate act or license to discriminate bills. And the most recent one, I won't say most recent, but the biggest one that we've really honed in on and talked about, and we are in the courts with our friends at the ACLU suing, is the state of North Carolina for SB 2. And that was a law that their governor signed 6-9 months ago, and that basically said that you can use your religion to discriminate against people that are lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender. Specifically was targeting where transgender people were going to go to the bathroom. That's what the governor of North Carolina decided was the pressing issue for his state, which we all know that's just silly, right? It's just stupid. There's no other word for these type of laws when you have this in place. So we're seeing these religious restoration acts, these license to discriminate bills are popping up all over. Luckily, we've been able to kill some of these, not Lambda in general, meaning the community as a whole. The LGBT community has been able to kill some of these bills in certain states. Certain states saw the backlash that happened to Indiana, that happened to North Carolina, and they are fighting back. Thankfully, with companies and other organizations are sitting there saying, we don't want to be known as a state that discriminates. We don't want to be known as the place that does this. So with that, we also have transgender rights that we're going to be, that's on the forefront now. That's the face of our movement at this time is transgender rights. Whether it comes to restrooms, healthcare, their safety. We all know that Black trans women are the most targeted, murdered in our community. They have a 4-time more likely rate than any other person in our community to be murdered simply because of who they are. So we're fighting those issues as well. youth in schools, foster care. We have a lot of problems for our youth. They're starting early. These hateful people are starting really early, creating laws and bills that target our youth. Deciding in Kansas, they passed a law that targets transgender youth, and the children are told, if you turn in a trans youth that's using the wrong restroom according to the law, we're going to give you a $1,000 bonus. So let's put a target on these youth's back. So let's start early. Right, and this is something that people don't really know a lot about because, again, it's not in Texas, so we're not as used to hearing it because we got enough problems to fight here, right? Other things that are on the forefront, workplace, family law, especially when it comes to birth certificates and death certificates, since we're talking about aging issues. Even with marriage equality, some states fought back and did not want to issue the proper death certificate to a spouse who has a loved one who passed away. HIV, we're fighting criminalization all across the nation on taking away these criminalization laws, also helping lift the blood ban, which we did. We were part of helping get it down to 1 year blood ban if you're a gay man and you abstain from sex for a minimum of 1 year, you may now give blood. But we all know that that's still a blood ban, however you want to say it. And also with seniors, housing and Social Security, we're working on those issues. Immigration is a huge one as well. Even with marriage equality, we still have a lot of immigration issues that face LGBT people. And then definitely, I talked about trans rights, but that is really from every level that we have got to be working on. And those are a lot of the issues that we see on the forefront, Sam.
Great, thank you. We're going to go right to Steve Rudner, who, again, is chair of Equality Texas, has been active across the state, and is looking forward to a very busy 2017. Steve?
Thanks, Sam. Sam talked about the 200 anti-LGBT bills that have been filed in legislatures across the country this year. We're expecting in the upcoming session of the Texas legislature, which starts in January, that we may confront just here in Texas 100 anti-LGBT bills. Omar mentioned the bill that many of you hadn't heard about in Kansas, the $1,000 bathroom bounty. That was introduced in the last session of the Texas legislature by Representative Pena from Houston. That bill will be back. I want to say something very briefly about the religious freedom laws. I had possibly the most perplexing and strange conversation with a state senator recently who was advocating for the need for a religious freedom law in Texas, although we have a religious freedom law in Texas and have had for many years, and it's working fine. He's advocating for this what he calls a religious freedom bill, and he explains that it's not fair for people to be discriminated against when they're forced against their religion to have to serve someone who's a member of the LGBT community. Forget about how strange that sounds on its face. Here's what's most strange about that. In Texas, in most of Texas, with the exception of Dallas and Plano and Austin and Fort Worth, and to some extent San Antonio and El Paso, in the vast majority of Texas, it's perfectly legal to discriminate against someone, to decline them service or employment or an apartment or a mortgage because they're a member of the LGBT community. And so in a state where it is legal to discriminate, our state leaders feel that we still have to protect people's right to discriminate, even though it is now perfectly legal to discriminate. That's how far off course we are. That's how full of hate, and there's no other term you can use for it, members of our state legislature are. But in terms of the aging LGBT community, I think among the challenges we confront are these. Most Texans don't understand that it's legal to discriminate against members of the LGBT community. And so we know that we believe that as people age, for example, if you're a senior citizen and a member of the LGBT community and you're living in the DFW Metroplex, and you decide for economic reasons that it'll be cheaper for you to be an assisted living facility or a skilled nursing facility someplace in rural Texas, you may not realize that with that move, you lose all of the rights that you have against being discriminated against. If the religious freedom laws that we're talking about were to be adopted here in Texas, what that would mean in particular regard to the LGBT community, the aging members of the LGBT community, is that any member who works on the staff of a nursing home or an assisted living facility could say, I'm refusing, I'm not interested in caring for you, it's against my religious beliefs to have to care for you, I'm not providing service to you. These are are lethal. And there's a big gap because a lot of the care that's received is federal government funded care. And you know that now we have some laws that prevent federal contractors from discriminating against members of the LGBT community. But we do not have federal law that says that federally funded nursing home institutions cannot discriminate against the LGBT community. So we've got gaps and holes, and we've got to, in this coming legislative session, close those gaps and advance non-discrimination protections for members of the LGBT community throughout the state.
Thank you, Steve. And now we turn to Linda Ender. The Senior Source is very tied into the local fabric here in North Texas and provides many services on a local level. Linda, could you address a little bit about what are the most attention-getting issues for older advocates are in the local scene?
Sure. The Senior Source has been around since 1961, and our name is the Senior Source because we're a good source for all things having to do with aging, okay? And so today I have some cards and information about the agency if you're not familiar with us. But we do a myriad of things. We have 10 programs. Some people know us for one program and they think that's all we do, but we do things from volunteering, placing older adults in volunteer opportunities all the way to protecting frail older adults, okay? So quite a spectrum of different programs and activities. And this isn't an agency presentation, so I'll leave it at that. But I do public policy for our agency, and we do advocacy at all levels of government. But today, I'm wearing the local hat as far as this panel. So we're going to be very involved. Well, we are already very involved in the City of Dallas budget. They'll make their determinations at the end of September. Revenues are down, and so that means that we're mainly going to be looking at trying to maintain funding that we have there for senior programming. We are asking for more money for emergency home repair. Huge issue of affordable housing. I was just in the housing breakout, so huge issue with affordable housing in our state, probably the entire nation, I would imagine. And one way of preserving some affordable housing is for people to be able to keep their own house and to maintain it. So we are asking for an increase there. The county budget. We'll be involved in that. Judge Jenkins is already kind of floating, the concept of cutting taxes. And if that's the case, again, we're going to be in a fighting mode to maintain any funding that we already have. And then we have the bond election coming up, the 2017 bond election, and I'm working hard to get senior centers for seniors. If you go to all the suburbs around us, they have really nice senior centers. Some of them, like Grand Prairie, it's like walking into, it's the ultimate. If any of you been to the summit, I see some heads nodding. Anyway, gosh, it's like walking into a resort. In the city of Dallas, we do not have senior centers. We have just one. And we have a councilman that is leading the charge for the city of Dallas to go on a pay-as-you-go basis, to never have bond elections in the future, to not ever have any debt. Okay, and that's Councilman Lee Kleinman. We have a lot of work. Oh, and then I have some advocates that have taken it as their mission to go back and look at your city website. They've taken it as their mission to get links on the home pages of all the city sites in our area to senior services, because seniors have a hard time locating services and where are they, what are they, and we want to have a link on, and I've got several. That's their mission. They're trying to get that done. If you go to the websites, some do, but the great majority do not have links to senior services. So that's some of what we're doing locally.
Thank you all very much. When we talk about legislative issues at any level, a lot of times they seem a little bit remote and distant from, our day-to-day existence. You talk about 100 bills, you talk about court cases, you talk about this, or, things that seem a bit removed. But let's try to take it back to the experience of an individual LGBT aging person. So the question is about the rights of people in home health care and in nursing homes. What protections are in place? And what risks are LGBT seniors exposed to, and what needs to be done in order to make sure that LGBT seniors are treated fairly? Steve, you want to start?
Yes.
And then just pass the mic.
I want to call to your attention, for those of you that want to do some reading afterwards, a unique section of the Texas Legislative Code. It's Title VI, Chapter 102 of the Human Resources Code. And that law gives the elderly in our state the right to be treated in dignity and respect without regard to, and listen to the list, without regard to race, religion, national origin, sex, age, disability, marital status, or source of payment. Something is missing from that list. And it gives our elders the right to be treated free from mental abuse. It's sad, and it's an illustration of how invisible LGBT seniors are in the state of Texas that no one has thought to add LGBT status to that list. The absence of that list, the fact that we do not explicitly prevent and prohibit anti-LGBT slurs or insults in nursing homes, is a primary factor, in my estimation, that forces people back into the closet. This is a cultural issue, and if you need care and the only place that you can afford is a place that you hear people making anti-LGBT slurs and anti-LGBT remarks and stripping away every bit of your dignity, that's another incentive for you to say, I have to be here, this is all I can afford, and I'm not going to make waves. And that's just both cruel and unusual punishment. Texas law also currently allows a nursing home or an assisted living facility to transfer a patient if it's for their own welfare because their needs can't be met by the person providing services. But it doesn't define what that means, and that enables anyone to say, I don't know how to deal with gay people, and I'm not qualified to do it, and so it's for your own benefit that you have to leave here and go someplace else. We've got to change that statute. That statute, you won't be surprised to know, is enforced by the Office of the Attorney General, who I guess that says it all, and I won't have to make any commentary there. But there are a lot of things that we have to do, and to effect change in that statute and many of the other statutes that affect LGBT people, and also in our last session we had a great comment that I had not thought of, honestly, and that is we have people who are your parents, our parents, who are in these facilities, who are proud of their LGBT children, who have to stop being proud of their LGBT children or ask their LGBT children not to be LGBT when they come visit because they don't want to get grief in nursing homes. I mean, this is the reversal of every gain as a culture and as a society that we've made over these years. And it has to stop, and the only way that it will stop is by raising the level of visibility, not just of the LGBT community, but of LGBT seniors. And as I said in our last session, in Austin, the overwhelming majority of the members of our state legislature don't like you if you're young and gay, old and gay, or anywhere in between young and old and gay.
So I would definitely say if you're looking for information to definitely hit our website, lambdalegal.org. We have an entire hub that's just that's specific to seniors. So you'll be able to see all the different buttons. So if you're mostly interested in seniors in housing or seniors in healthcare, seniors and long-term care, we have all of these different buttons on our hub so that it's a much easier way to find where you're going. We also took into account that some of our seniors are not hugely savvy with a computer, so we didn't want it to be these teeny tiny links with small tiny print in colors that they can't always decipher when it's on a bright screen. So we took into a lot of account how to make sure that this was written and produced onto a website, but also knowing that a lot of this had to be available in print, because again, a lot of our seniors also, because they're not savvy with a computer, they don't want to look at a computer. Sometimes that computer scares them, or that iPhone or that tablet. And so we have everything available as well in print. We do have some of those resources on our table. That the booth just recently moved from the booth room to right in the front door. So as you're leaving or walking towards the front at the end of the hall where the food now is, you can pick up all the different resources that we have there as well. And we make sure that some of those resources are specific to transgender people, and also with our coalition of partners. One of them is about long-term care facilities that we did together with the National Association of LGBT Aging, as well as the National Ombudsman. So you can get the frequently asked questions and get those answers right away, especially if you're an advocate and or if you just need that information for yourself.
So older people are obviously a more vulnerable population, and in Texas, in addition to LGBT concerns, anybody who faces the prospect of going into a nursing home just should have concerns. Texas ranks at the bottom or near the bottom in terms of nursing home quality measures across the board. We are particularly bad on things like the use of antipsychotic drugs for people who are not psychotic, but as a means of more keeping a patient calm or quiet or not sort of chemical restraint is what it's often referred to. So the problems that face any older person in Texas in a nursing home are problems that face LGBT people, in addition to some of the problems that Steve and Omar have cited. And that's something that we sincerely need to address in Texas. We must do better. We must have better oversight. We must have improved quality at nursing homes in Texas.
Yeah. So I'm going to do my deal again. We've already done this session, so we kind of anticipate what one another are going to say. In the last session, I told Steve there was some good news, okay? And there is some, I just want everyone to know. The Older Americans Act funds long-term care ombudsman, okay? And those funds come to the states, and then they come to the individual programs. So in Dallas County, we have a long-term care ombudsman program, and it's housed at the Senior Source. We're the ones that run that program. And what does that mean? Well, it means that we have 10 staff ombudsmen, and then we have an army of volunteer ombudsmen that are in and out of nursing homes and assisted living facilities monitoring care. And it's real important to be in those assisted living facilities, you guys, because folks don't want to go to a nursing home. They'll go to an assisted living facility, and then they're aging in place, and oftentimes they're needing more care than what they're getting, and so that makes for a dangerous situation. So the ombudsmen are eyes and ears. They're in and out of these facilities to see if there are problems. They let all the residents know that they're there if they need them. And the residents or their families or friends that come for visits can report to the ombudsman if there are problems. Some of these are like, I don't like my broccoli cooked that long, okay? But some of them are more serious. I mean, very serious. There'll be issues of, some guy being eat up by fire ants in his bed, or you can't reach the call button, are very serious things. Sometimes they're wanting to kick them out of nursing homes because of their behavior. They're a strong advocate for themselves, and now they don't need that. They don't want that headache. So if they can't medicate them, you were talking about medications, then they're wanting them out of there. Our ombudsmen advocate for the individuals, and they're very, very strong advocates, I want you to know. And so some of the issues that Steve's talking about are addressed by those ombudsmen oftentimes. I recognize that ombudsmen are, some programs are stronger than others, but we're very fortunate you are very fortunate. Everyone in the Dallas County is fortunate to have the strong ombudsman program that's at the Senior Source, because they are relentless and they are wonderful advocates. They've advocated for people not being kicked out of a facility and have even gone to court to deter that, and they've been very, very successful. They're real resourceful. Sometimes if they can't resolve the problem with the facility, then they're calling regulatory. Well, if regulatory is not responsive, then they get a little creative. Maybe they call an elected official's office, and a call from an elected official sometimes can make a difference. But they're very, very aggressive. They take all kinds of calls and problems. They are an advocate for that resident and the family members of those residents, okay? And I just wanted you to know that there is that help and that resource to use.
Yeah, I just want to say, for those of us that are not yet at the age where we're going into an assisted living facility, people tell you all the time the kind of conversations you should have. You should write down what you want done for your end-of-life decisions and all that. I don't know if anyone has said this yet. I don't know if this is part of our estate planning discussions or wherever these discussions are medical professional discussions. And I want to tie the political to these kind of healthcare decisions. In order for what you've just said to work, there are two choices, and that is we each have to say to whoever's going to be helping us make those kind of decisions as we age, listen, if you've got to put me in an assisted living facility, you need to keep me in Dallas County, because I don't want to be put in a county where I have no protections, right? In Dallas County, someone can call and say, hey, this person's being discriminated against because they're a member of the LGBT community. That's illegal in Dallas County. That's not illegal in Denton. Okay, so you need to have a conversation. This is where I want to be. And alternatively, or additionally, if we don't want to make sure that we say to all LGBT people, for God's sake, keep me in Dallas County, for example, then the other alternative, if we want to be fair to every member of the LGBT community as we age, is to say that's why we've got to have statewide non-discrimination protection instead of just those of us that are fortunate to live in counties like Dallas County or like here in Plano. And I'm confident that you all know that our state senator from this district, Don Huffines, is the leading proponent of legislation which would eliminate the ability of cities to pass and enforce their own non-discrimination ordinances. So there's a lot of action, and we've got to get things done.
Thank you, Steve. As part of the mission of the Coalition for Aging, what we're trying to do is bring together a lot of advocates on issues that might not normally work together, or maybe they don't work as closely as they could. We have 4 different organizations here represented at the table, and there are many, many other organizations as well that we're reaching out to and working with. But what I would like to do is we've identified a number of problems. We have a pretty difficult session coming up in 2017. We are also going to be under some pretty severe budget constraints in the state as well as at the local level. How do we approach next year? How do we work together? What can we all bring to the table to forward the benefits of seniors, LGBT seniors, locally as well as statewide? And Linda, can we start with you?
Well, it's all about what we've already mentioned. It's all about education and then advocacy, right? And but what I do see happening oftentimes is that we do the education and we spend a lot of time talking, and then maybe we don't do as much advocacy. And so I would say that we need the education. We need to be building coalitions, working together, but the most important thing is to do the advocacy, okay? And it's not that hard for people that, are not used to doing it. You get with us and we can help you. You join a group and and do it with them. But it's really awfully simple, and it's just getting in the habit of doing it. and the important thing is to do it. Some people don't realize if you could have 30 people show up at a meeting. 30 people isn't that much. All of us could pull together 30 people, and that will make an impression. You want to know why? Because they don't get numbers of people oftentimes on issues. And so I would say, the important thing is to get out there and do some advocacy.
Yes, I would agree with that, obviously, and I would encourage you, if you have not done it, to visit the Equality Texas website, which is equalitytexas.org. There's an action center. It costs nothing to join. You'll get updates, particularly as we get closer to the session starting in January. But you're exactly right. We have advocacy days that we'd love for you to join us at the Capitol and start knocking on doors. And we do training. You're told what to say. It's not scary. It's not frightening. It's fun. But even equally important, and maybe more important, there are days during the legislative session, and I don't mean to be overly dramatic, but there are days where we need, in order to accomplish something or to defeat something, I know that I need, in this representative's office, I need 100 phone calls to happen. And we hear it all the time. Well, the other side's calling and I'm not hearing from your people. And so we need you with your zip code so that we know who your state representative is, so that we can send you an email that says, please pick up the phone this morning and call this person to say this thing and make your voice be heard. We have got to raise visibility, not just to the LGBT community generally, but for the purposes of our discussion today, LGBT seniors cannot stay invisible and simultaneously have their rights advanced.
I definitely concur with being an advocate and getting out there. I have the distinct honor of being a representative on our county school board, and so I kind of wear two hats, and I can tell you that everything they've just said is true. The squeaky wheel gets the grease. And let me tell you, when the squeaky wheels are squeaking, all the other trustees start scrambling because they want them to shut up, right? We don't want to hear from them again. We don't want 30 people showing up into our little bitty room where we can hold 12 people, because it gets a little scary when you're in there. Nothing is scarier than a video camera in your face as well when you have somebody talking to you. And there's a lot of amazing advocates out here that I've watched walk up to an elected official and give them their peace of mind, or stop them and say, no, you're not going to say that about me and my family. And we've got to be able to do that and be able to stand up. And sometimes it's scary, because when you are walking up to a U.S. congressperson who maybe you've never met, it's a little daunting. But don't be scared of them. Trust me, they're more scared of you. They really, really are, because you have the power of the vote. And you can eliminate them in their job and in their office. So it's really important that we do advocate with each other, that we build these coalitions with each other. And sometimes those coalitions are not the ones that we always think that we're going to be part of. Or we sometimes think, I'm not going to walk over there and talk to that group because maybe I'm part of a Latino LGBT organization, and I think that, the Anglo LGBT organization isn't really going to help me. Well, it's kind of one of those things. Did you ask? Did you ask? Did you walk in? Because sometimes you walk in and they're like, we've been dying to meet you. We've been wanting to work with you. We just didn't know how to approach you. So don't be afraid. And especially as seniors, I think it's really important that we get out there together, because you all have paved the way for somebody like me to be in the position that I'm in. It wouldn't have happened without those folks that were at Stonewall, that were there before Stonewall, that were there in the 80s, making sure that when gay men were going through the HIV AIDS crisis and lifting them up and picking them up, it was you guys who did that. Not me. I wasn't part of that. It was you guys that got me here. So you guys know how to fight. You guys know how to make it happen. And you might be a little tired. I get it, but you all are the ones that made sure that this community stayed resilient. I love that word that was used earlier during the opening, was resiliency. And that's what part of this community is, and how we continue to work and advocate is because of resiliency. So keep it up.
So everybody's got their network, social networks, real networks. I think thinking next session about the issues that are going to be important to you, the issues that are important to people as they age, issues that are important, particularly to LGBT people as they age. If you can commit yourself to trying to organize your network and reaching out to elected officials, your legislator, your state senator, I'm always sort of shocked by the impact that constituents have on elected officials. As I've lobbied for a long time, and I sort of get a little jaded by it. Like, it doesn't matter what you say, but I see members' positions change or at least soften based on interaction from their constituents. So I would strongly encourage you to organize your network and reach out to your elected officials, your state representatives and state senators next legislative session.
Thank you, guys. There's one other thing that I do want to mention, an avenue that we haven't mentioned, and I'm surprised, Steve. Business voices make a big difference when we're talking about. Okay, well, I'm going to give it back to Steve here. How can you get business involved in this?
So, Texas Competes. I'm begging you on behalf of Texas Competes, those of you that don't know who that is or what that is, and those that do, we need your help. TexasCompetes.org. It's an online list of companies that are either based in Texas or that have a presence in Texas. It doesn't matter if you have one employee or you're a Fortune 500 company. And nonpartisan, doesn't lobby, doesn't take a position in favor or against any candidate. It's a simple pledge that says our business believes that in order for the Texas economy to continue to thrive, to be a place to which companies want to relocate, to be able to attract millennials, the right employees that we need to drive this economy forward, our state has to be open and welcoming to the LGBT community. And so our business opposes legislation which would discriminate against that community. We have now 1,100 Texas businesses on that list. There has never in the history of the state of Texas been any kind of social movement. That 1,100 businesses, including now with the addition of Dean Foods this week, we're now at 35 Fortune 500 companies. Never happened before in the state of Texas, and those voices are listened to in Austin. So if you have your own business, if you work at a business, if you have a restaurant that you go to every week that welcomes you and loves you, or your mechanic, or wherever it is, it costs nothing. It's a 30-second sign-up. It makes a huge difference, and we want that number to be 2,000 businesses by January. And I'll also say, and then I'll shut up, we don't just want it to be Dallas and Plano and DFW businesses. We need this to be your friend that you went to high school with in Abilene and in Lufkin. And we need this to be rural Texas in every field. It's not just people that they would expect. This is not a collection of 1,000 Whole Foods and florists, right? This is we need oil. We need this to be oil companies. We need this to be, and it is. It's a great list. Every high-tech company, every hospitality company, every airline. We have major banks. I mean, it's an impressive list, and all the people who have signed are on that website. But if your business or the business that you're influential with or know someone at is not on that list, I'm begging you, please fix that today and ask 10 other businesses. I can tell you, having talked to several hundred of those businesses myself, it's energizing and it's fun to ask someone when they don't. I'm not asking you to lobby or to take a position on a bill or a candidate. I'm just asking you to say that you don't think discrimination is good. And we don't want to be the next North Carolina. We don't want to be the next Indiana. We don't want to destroy our state's economy. Please sign this. Man, it feels great when you get somebody to do it, and it makes a huge difference. Please get involved with us.
Thank you, Steve. We are now officially over time. Please join me in thanking our panel. And I believe that at this point we are going to reconvene for the plenary. So it'll be broadcast in here as well as in the regular session room. Thank you so much. Thank you, panel, and thank you all for attending.